Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we'll be going over a very active pattern that will be occurring across the United States for the next 1 to 2 weeks. I will be focusing obviously on the day-to-day chances of rain and what areas, what regions will be favored to see the most of that rain. Also, I will be going over the tropical threat. There is most likely at this point going to be at least one storm, probably a hurricane early probably to Sunday or Monday of next week. And then following that, potentially another system. And you can see there are already various watches and warnings up for the Gulf of Mexico, not yet on land. Notice that they do have a alert for the Tropical Depression 9, so it is a depression as of now. Obviously nothing too significant, but yeah, you can see there's a hurricane warning. It's expected to reach a hurricane criteria at least probably, well, let's see, by Saturday night, according to this graphic that they handed out here. Very fast intensification, and honestly could be around the Louisiana area by Monday. So it really rapidly developing situation. Also, lots of heat going on. Really just oppressive heat across the Northeast, but areas across the South, the Mid-South, and of course across the Southwest. Before we get into this video, if you guys are enjoying these videos or you're not subscribed yet, consider doing that. Obviously, consider subscribing if you enjoy it. And same thing with liking the video. If you do enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any comments or concerns, leave them down below, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, so let's start talking about the pattern. So notice that first off, right off the bat, the National Weather Service map, I've been kind of on this. There are some flash flood watches across northern Iowa. That's, again, to do with that active pattern. And yeah, a lot of storms there potentially tonight, some severe. And we do have a lot of threat for, again, oppressive heat. Obviously, across Missouri, Illinois, Kansas, and portions of the Northeast. There also are flash flood watches across the Northeast, indicating that the soils there are already very soggy and filled with water. Because you can see that the next couple of days really aren't going to be wet. It's mainly of just how wet it has been, and any additional rain that does fall will be very bad. But notice that right there in the future, into Saturday and Saturday night, it looks more likely for some more decent rainfall. So that is definitely a concern as well, to do with that active pattern. Across the northern plains, really not much going on right now, but I have a feeling that there will be some areas of watches and warnings and whatnot in the next coming week. Before we look at the models, I do want to quickly show you the drought monitor. The reason I'm showing you this is because they updated this today on Thursday, and they do that every single week. Thursday they update it, and notice that the northern plains, there are obviously still pretty bad drought conditions. The northwest, the southwest, and potentially developing across Kansas and Nebraska. Just to show you, because it's hard to say, you know, what changed over the past 2 weeks. So let's just compare them side by side. This is today. This is the updated week. This was a week prior ago. I am fairly sure about that. Yes. Okay, so notice that there is some drought developing across Oklahoma, northwestern Oklahoma, Kansas. It definitely is a bit getting a bit worse there. The plains, North Dakota, notice that in some areas it did get smaller, or got a bit better, I should say. But really, I think that the most of this betterment, if you will be happening in the next week or two across Minnesota and South Dakota and North Dakota. And Iowa as well. They do have a flash flood watch where the drought is occurring. Notice the Northeast also a bit right there inland. There are some dry conditions. And of course the Northwest getting definitely interesting, to say the least, as there hasn't been any relief. There probably won't be any, and yeah, continued expansion and worsening of that drought. Southwest, look at that, Arizona, potentially some areas are almost completely getting out of that drought, so that's definitely some good news, but still many areas in that exceptional drought, which is something of concern. Okay, let's take a look now at the GFS model and see what it shows. So let's take a look at the 12Z model run. The 18Z hasn't come in fully. Notice I'm just gonna not go day by day, because day by day is very hard to predict, and even if these models do show something and they're pretty confident about it, it's very hard. This atmosphere is extremely hostile, and basically any thunderstorm threat that occurs is hard to predict, and exactly where it will go and what it will do and timing it out, especially beyond 1 or 2 days, is really just a waste of time. So I'm just going to show you what they're favoring. Notice today, obviously, lots of storms across Iowa. They're rather confident about that. That's why there are that flash flood watches. That's why they're up. Notice that occurs potentially, spreads into Illinois, Wisconsin. This model doesn't do that. We'll have to see what happens. North Dakota also seeing some precipitation, and as we push this forward in time, notice we do see obviously that hurricane across. At this point, that would be almost a hurricane. It develops very quickly across the South Gulf. This is now into late Friday, early Saturday. Notice the northern plains continued bouts of precip. Here's the time, 7 roughly 1 p.m. Notice, it makes landfall potentially by late Sunday, this storm. Very, very, very quick. You always thought it could be Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. Now it's Sunday. And it's a rather powerful one, maybe not a category 5, but potentially a major one, a category 3 and above, rather large, and it's making its aim onto New Orleans, according to this model, which, is not good for many reasons, as that city is almost below sea level at this point. And obviously, that does bring flashbacks to what happened in 2005. This isn't most likely going to be that type of storm in terms of strength, but whatever it may bring, it definitely should be something worthy to be prepared for. So at this point, it seems more likely that it's going to be hitting Louisiana than Texas, but definitely it could go. It could still, hit eastern Louisiana, western Louisiana. So anywhere in this area, just start preparing. It's not most likely not going to hit Florida at this point, but just anywhere in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama. Stay prepared, especially if you're in New Orleans. That is definitely something you'll have to watch for. Just please start taking action at this point, because you only have a few days left if this thing is going to occur when it's forecasted to, the 29th. Very, very few days out. Notice that across the Midwest, again, the continued precip, we have a very strong system that develops a weaker cold front than what we were previously looking at. But this tropical storm hurricane, at this point, you could still see it's across the south, delivering very heavy rainfall. Finally does get swept out, but it does impact a lot of the northeast with more heavy rain. On the northwest, you can see the southwest, a lot of activity from infueled from moisture in the tropics, and notice that does develop a few systems, a few bands of precipitation rain, though it does look like there may be a bit of a drier period starting around September 2nd, and that really ends around the September 6th, 7th period. As you can see, a strong troughing occurs. We have large bouts of precip across Wyoming, Montana, and portions of the Northeast. And obviously, look at that. We have another hurricane, and that's what I was talking about. You can see this one's very far out, but it's been shown in the models for quite some time. And notice this one is obviously pretty strong. What it will do is tough to tell, but you can see even some snow into southeastern Canada. Very strong trough. Nice precipitation across the Dakotas again, and you can see that this one moves all the way into the Midwest with its very, very heavy precipitation into Michigan. Again, that's a rather extreme scenario. We'll have to see what happens. This one is very far out. It's more like just let's focus on that first one, right? But you can see the pattern remains active nonetheless. And I want to show you the precip amounts. They obviously reflect that very, very well. Notice where the two storms or even the one may occur, obviously above it, probably a foot of rain right at the coast especially. But even as this, pushes further inland, it could drop several inches, if not, maybe up to half a foot above. Look at that. That's good news, right? Look at all that decent rain across the drought-stricken areas, even across the west, Montana, Wyoming. This isn't going to bust the drought, but it's going to really prevent it from getting too much worse. This is not too good. These areas are very wet. They're going to continue to see wet conditions, so that could lead to some further hydraulic complications. And I do want to show you that if you recall that little wave of cool air from that system, there could be a decent cool off from this, which is why I also want to make this kind of at this end. Notice around that time where that activity starts quieting down, right, was following that was that troughing, and look what it does. It could bring a decent dose of cool air, and that would be, look at that warm front, cold front from that system right there. Very cool air for the plains potentially. Again, this would bring some potential first frost for many, not first snow, but it's first frost, and you can see that is a definite cool down for the eastern chunk of the U.S. really starting around early September even, because of that first storm that already occurs. That's going to be from cloud cover, that hurricane. That's why it's below average. You can see that repeated kind of cool blast of air. I want to show you how cool some of these temperatures could get. So let's take a look at that 2-meter temperature shaded, and notice that, look at that. I mean, that's an insane contrast right there. 90s in that warm front and cold front pocket, and in or up to the north, much cooler. that just goes to beautifully illustrate how that could occur when what does happen on every single storm, especially in the wintertime. I want to show you, look at that, 30s, 40s, all the way down into the large metropolitan Canadian areas, the cities, 30s, 40s. That is rather stark. Not unheard of, to see 30s in Pennsylvania during September. But it's just always the first one, the first blast kind of cool air that brings down into the 30s and 40s. Temperatures we haven't seen in a while. It's always a shock, even if it comes on time, which in this case might be a bit early. But yeah, notice definitely a cooler pattern for the east. Unfortunately for the west, the northwest, it remains warm. There could be some cooler air, but that's more in the short to medium range, so really kind of the next week. Versus the longer range across the east. I mean, look at some of these days. Getting into the 60s and 50s. That's rather pleasant. But for now, again, it does seem like there will be quite a bit of warmth up until around the 204-hour mark, and you can see frosts definitely are gonna start occurring. So that's the GFS. Let's take a quick glance at the European, another really good model that I look at and a lot of people look at. The thing is, look at this. So there's our active pattern today, those storm showers. It's a bit further towards the north according to the European, but look, there's our hurricane most likely impacting Louisiana around almost exactly the same area that the GFS shows. The kind of the consistency and confidence in the models with this storm has been just spot on. It's honestly a bit concerning, but it's also kind of satisfying to see them finally agreeing on something. It's like the two political parties when they do agree. It's something of a rare. Occurrence. But notice that where we do see the storm across Louisiana, there is a parallel one right here. This one, again, this one was supposed to be behind it, but for some reason all the models are speeding this one up and slowing this one down. So that's almost, kind of like twin hurricanes right there. But yeah, notice very strong, very heavy rain, probably a category 2 or 1 or 2 according to this model. And notice that this storm, like the European showed yesterday, does bring a lot of rain into the southwest, and it kind of contributes to the formation of a system across the plains. You can see lots of precip, lots of rain, some storms, showers, and that's it with the European. It doesn't show that second hurricane or storm because it's a bit further out according to the GFS, and obviously if it's that far out, it's not really worthy to be kind of debating that topic. But let's take a look at that total accumulated precip. Notice what catches our eye right off the bat is where that hurricane occurs. Lots of rain, but look at the Midwest right there. That is decent chunks of it as well. Southern Canada, southeastern Canada a bit less, but look at that. This Canadian Prairie seeing decent amounts as well. A bit drier for Wyoming, Idaho according to the European, but look across Arizona, Southern California potentially, and into northern Mexico, decent amounts of rain, and that's going to be good. It's been dry, they need that. Yeah, and notice that this storm into Louisiana obviously does drop quite a bit of rain, and that tracks into the northeast. So again, don't get too caught up on this. For example, you see Des Moines right here is in an inch, or yeah, literally an inch of rain for the next 10 days. But if today's event of thunderstorms occurs a bit more drastically, you could easily pick up 2 or 3 in just the first day. So that will already make it inaccurate. And again, the models just don't have that type of accuracy, unfortunately. But they could give us a good indication of where it's wetter, where it's a bit drier. But again, it doesn't mean that it's going to be completely dry or completely accurate, obviously. So in regarding the cool air, the European, it doesn't go out as far as the GFS, and that's when I think the cool air will start showing its true colors, right? But it does start indicating some signs of it. So notice obviously up until now heat, and that seems the kind of the predominant air mass, but towards the end you could see more pockets start showing up towards the northwest, and it starts sliding towards the south and east. You could see in some cases rather extreme anomalies of up to 25, even 30 in some areas. So definitely starting to show some indications or agreement with the GFS. I could show you the Canadian model, a decent model in terms of the air masses. I don't like it as much for the temperatures, but more for the precip. Does usually a poor job, but notice really just showing more heat. I think it would probably be a bit more expansive than what this model shows, but it does start showing some of that cool air towards the long range, just really not as connected with an air mass, just kind of random, if you will. And in terms of its precipitation amounts, this Canadian model agrees with the other models. This model, I don't like it as much for its precip outlook as well, because it just cuts off things very rapidly. Like, I mean, look at that right there, 2, 3, 4 inches, and then there's nothing right there, and that's acting like if it knows that's what's going to happen. And that could happen, but the model doesn't have that type of accuracy. So Basically, I just use this to say, okay, look, it's favoring weather pattern across the plains, across southern Canada. It cuts it off further towards the west, while the GFS and European keep a bit wetter. Drier towards the kind of the mid-south, wetter obviously where that storm occurs, and drier towards the Carolinas, which actually all the models were agreeing on this relatively. So, yeah, it agrees with the other models on a overall basis. And taking a look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, I want to show you that you could see we do start seeing some blue colors. The Climate Prediction Center does think that there's a good chance it could be cooler here. Again, it's a bit far out. It's not confident. This could be a lot more expansive. If it is going to be warm, it's across the deep south and into portions of the west. Precip staying above average, really just drying out across the west and really staying dry. It's been dry there for a while. 6 to 10 day outlook, so this is less further out. Notice that they are showing more heat and a cool air across the northwest because that's kind of where it comes from and that's where it begins. And the pattern does stay wet across much of the U.S. Wetter in the next 6 to 10 days, especially towards the west and more pushing towards the east as you go out towards the 8 to 14 day outlook, as you saw right here, cutting things off, making it drier across the southwest and portions of Wyoming and Utah. That could be seeing more rain into the next 6 to 10 days. So again, even these forecasts tend to be sometimes rather off, but they are still very good to look at. Regarding the tropical storm, the hurricane threat, obviously go to your authorities, National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service, potentially, maybe if there are evacuations, obviously listen to those and do as advised. But yeah, it's expected to become a hurricane at this point. Notice Florida really isn't in a cone of uncertainty. It's more of Louisiana and Mississippi. And I do want to say that, this could potentially become a major hurricane. They're not predicting that right now, but it's a possibility. So for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Yeah, see ya. Bye.